I feel like all my thoughts are just in my line of work right now. It's really, truly feeling empowered to speak up, feeling like you have that support system that will stand behind you so that if something is happening in your life, whether you're getting assaulted at work or there's something happening at home that shouldn't be happening, or something in your life, your marriage, feeling like you have someone to turn to, feeling like you have that support system, a therapist, a friend, a lawyer, and finding that empowerment to be able to speak to someone, I think is very, very important to reclaiming your voice, because it only takes one person to be able to say, you can do this. And I think that is extremely significant.
Hello, welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and this is a space where I consider extraordinary women from around the globe step forward to share their wisdom, their courage, and their dedication to uplifting the well-being of women everywhere. I work with leaders and teams and train coaches in my emotional integration techniques, and I support individuals who are ready to up-level and thrive and live their most authentic lives. I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. But I believe that we're living in a time of profound emergence for the feminine, for women's voices and visions and leadership. It's rising, and it's rising in powerful ways. And so I'm deeply grateful to be a conduit, introducing you to remarkable change makers and their stories of transformation, resilience, impact, and service. You can find Women Awakening with Cynthia James on every podcast platform and video on YouTube. Please share these conversations, subscribe, and leave a review. Your reviews truly make a difference in helping us reach more women around the world. You can also connect with me through my website, cynthiajames.net. I have a newsletter, a vibrant private community, and many offerings to support you. So I want to introduce you to my guest today. I'm very excited about this topic, and so I want to start with a question. What happens when a consensual office relationship isn't really consensual? Or when silence feels safer than speaking up? Today's guest, Brittany Stevens, is a fierce legal advocate for women experiencing sexual harassment or discrimination at work. As a partner at Phillips and Associates, she has represented countless employees, especially in high-profile industries, who were targeted by those in power. So if you have ever wondered how victims can protect themselves or fight back, I think this conversation is going to be really wonderful to shed some light on it. Brittany, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me, Cynthia. I'm excited to talk and, share my wisdom with all the listeners today.
Well, I'm really grateful that you're here. I want to start, though, with how you grew up. I don't think you probably came on the planet saying, I'm going to be a lawyer for women.
No, I did not. But I do have to admit that I come from a family of lawyers. So both my parents were lawyers. My dad's still a practicing lawyer. So it's always been in my blood, and I've always had dinner conversations centered around justice and, equality and fairness. I did know probably from a very young age that this was something that I was interested in. But as far as being, interested in employment discrimination, it wasn't until I went to law school, and I had a professor who taught employment discrimination that I just really connected to the topic. And I was just so moved at the fact that I can help people, find their voice and help, speak up for people who maybe were not able to speak up for themselves. And it was really that professor that I owe a lot of this, a lot of my journey to. But I did always know that, I probably would end up in the law field.
That's right. Well, I'm really excited to talk about this. I mean, I used to work in corporate America. And I cannot tell you how many stories I heard of women trying to tiptoe around what was what felt like harassment, how they would pull back their energy, how they were basically told in no uncertain terms that they wouldn't be believed if they talked about this stuff. And so I really am grateful to share this. I want to just ask you, why is silence so common? And why don't women report this harassment?
Right. I mean, it's a great question. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't report things. The main reason is fear of retaliation. A lot of women fear that, if they come forward with a complaint to their boss, their supervisor, or human resources, that they will have some kind of negative consequence. For example, an obvious thing is a termination, right? I complain and then I'm terminated. But there's also more subtle consequences, right? Maybe they are passed over for a promotion, or maybe, there's just more discussion amongst the office about the person that's making the complaint. Or maybe, they're fearful that they'll get demoted. I mean, there's many reasons why people are scared to come forward. A lot of companies do not have their policies and procedures maybe as accessible to people. Sometimes people don't even know how to complain, who to speak to. But companies do not always make employees feel as if they have a safe space to complain, and that if they do complain, it's going to be appropriately investigated, and that they will not have any kind of retaliation against them.
Yeah. Well, and this is so important because we all watched the Me Too movement rise. We all watched women, some high profile women who, were coming forward about this kind of behavior and the threats and or the disbelief in what they were saying, even for some people, all, going to lawsuits. So for you, when a woman comes to you, do you help them with like an exit strategy if it doesn't work for them to stand up for themselves?
Yes, I help a lot of women with exit strategies. So if someone comes to my office and they tell me that they're suffering some kind of hostile work environment, meaning they're getting sexually harassed or discriminated against at work, I find out, what is it that you want to do, right? Do you want to stay at your place of work and maybe see if we can move you to maybe there's like a transfer that can be available? Or do you no longer want to work there because, it's no longer safe for you? And if that's the case, then, sometimes we get involved and we try and figure out if there's some kind of way that we can quietly, confidentially have, some kind of discussion with, the company, where maybe there's like a severance that is given to my client or something, so that she feels like, okay, I can leave with my dignity, and I can lodge a complaint maybe externally through a lawyer. And, there can be an investigation. They can know about the harassment, but I don't have to stay there for the ride.
Yeah. And so have you personally ever had any of those experiences?
Oh, I do it every day. Are you talking about helping people with exit
I'm
strategies?
talking about you. Have you ever experienced harassment?
It's a good question. I yes, I mean, I have. I remember when I was like interviewing earlier on in my career, and this is not even something I usually talk about, but just even being like a young female interviewing. This is even predates me going to law school, but I was like interviewing at some of the larger banks in New York. And I know that, there was one job in particular that, I feel like I was not qualified for, but I got because I think they wanted a younger female, right? And maybe that's to like, some people can say to my benefit, but that's made me so uncomfortable. I obviously didn't take that job. But it's like a lot of subtle things that women face in the workplace. Sexual harassment is not always overt, right? It's not always like a sexual assault or a rape case that we handle, right? A lot of it sometimes is in the subtle, the stares, the inappropriate comments, things that maybe, there's a lot of grooming matters that we handle. So, you know, people really need to trust their gut. If something feels off, it probably is.
Yeah. I really, because you're a woman, and when women come to you, I mean, how do you manage? Because we know you know the law. We know you know how to support them in making choices, but how do you manage the level of emotionality that walks through your door?
Right. Yeah. I mean, people come to us in like their most vulnerable state, right? Sometimes people are terminated. Sometimes people are egregiously sexually harassed. So, leading with a lot of empathy and, compassion and like most importantly, just listening, right? Like a lot of people just need someone to talk to and someone who they trust. And, I do this all day, every day. So for me, this is like, I already know how to, get through the situation for my clients. But for them, a lot of the times it's the first time that they're even dealing with this or they're having to call a lawyer. And that's a really scary experience. So, I really provide like a safe space for my clients so that they feel as if, I can be the person that will speak to the employer. You no longer have to do it. It will be me. Let's remove you from this unsafe environment, or let's negotiate a way out for you so that we can like protect you.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I guess I want to just ask you about the fear factor. And what I mean is that many women walk through your door afraid that it's going to ruin their career if they speak up, or afraid that their colleagues will judge them, or afraid that they won't be honored or believed.
Right. I mean, most, right? Most people. And, you know, especially talking about like not being believed, right? A lot of times discrimination is not overt, right? Not everyone has the smoking gun piece of evidence, right? Like the recording or the text message or the email. Discrimination is often subtle. So a lot of times people, do not think that they even have a claim because all they have is their word. And that's a scary thing to feel like I'm going to go up against my company just with like my word alone. But what people have to remember is that, testimony, right? Your version of what happened is evidence. And, if you are able to talk about what happened, that's very powerful. And I know it's fearful, but, then we look at credibility, right? Who would someone believe? Are they going to believe our client, or are they going to believe, the bad actor who maybe has multiple complaints against him or her?
Mm. Yeah. So does maternity leave or pregnancy fall in this realm? Because I know that a lot of, for men, it's like, oh, I'm having a baby. This is great. For women, there's a whole nother ball game there.
Right. Yeah. So, pregnancy discrimination is another form of like, could be gender discrimination, right? So we have sexual harassment, but then, another thing that women have to add on top of the things that can happen to them at work is that they can also get discriminated against based on their pregnancy, right? And we see a lot of times, and I handle a lot of pregnancy related matters where a woman informs her company that she's pregnant and she wants to know about the maternity options. And then there's some kind of adverse consequence that later happens, right? Like all of a sudden she's demoted or she's passed over for that promotion, or, she's terminated, right before she's about to take her leave. Or she goes out on maternity leave and then when she returns, she is, has those negative consequences. So, there are a lot of unfortunate things that women face sometimes when they, do take a protected leave. And part of my job is trying to, make sure that that does not happen, or that if it does happen, I can try and make them whole again.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, I I know there are women right this moment who are listening who have experienced it or are in the midst of it. So, what advice would you give to women who are in the midst of having harassment and not exactly knowing what to do.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, right? That's why, honestly, calling a law firm is probably one of the smartest things to do, just so that you can speak to someone who could see if you even have a claim or to see if what's happening is unlawful. People call me all the time with, saying, oh, this is happening at work. I don't know if it's unlawful. And I'm listening to it and I'm saying, oh my goodness, I can't even believe they're not accommodating you, right? You're asking to not lift 10 pounds and they won't do that during your pregnancy, or, you need like a room to, breastfeed in and they won't provide that accommodation. So, definitely like learning about your legal rights is important. A lot of clients come to us, with a lot of documentation, right? And they're, sometimes smart enough to say, I think something's wrong, but let me start documenting things while I'm still employed, maybe taking contemporaneous notes or asking witnesses. So those are certain things that people sometimes come already to our office with. That's often helpful.
Yeah. Well, I remember working with a client, and she was like, I want to call an attorney, but I don't have enough money, I don't think. And then what if it doesn't go well? I'm out of work. And so the word she used was stuck. I
Mhm.
feel stuck. And so, I mean, not everybody in the world can come to Phillips and Associates. So are there other avenues that people can explore if they're not in a financial place to hire an attorney?
Right. Well, I mean, so our firm takes that under consideration, which is why we're a contingency firm. We take a percentage as our attorneys because most of our clients cannot pay, X amount of money upfront for a retainer. A lot of our clients are not in that financial position. So, if people are in that position, you would want to look for a contingency lawyer. Or, some people just handle things internally. Some people just complain to, the human resources department and hope that things are fixed, right then and there, because that's what HR is supposed to do. Although I think we all know that that's rarely the case. But sometimes, informing the, HR, hey, I'm getting discriminated against. Here's everything that's happening. The hope is that they can, step in.
Yeah. So, how do you walk away daily and not carry the weight of everything that you're hearing or dealing with?
Oh, I mean, I try very hard to leave it at the door before I walk into like, seeing my kids, because it is very heavy work. And I'm constantly thinking about my clients all the time and how I can help them. But, one thing my parents always did, and this is something I'm so grateful for, is that when they came home, we didn't talk about work. They didn't bring their stress of work into our family life. And I really try and do that for my family as well. Then they go to sleep. I can log back on. I can, continue working. But, you don't want to carry everything with you all the time because, then I can't be the best version of myself at home. Or will I probably be the best lawyer anyway? Because then, my cup is not full.
Right. Yeah. Well, I do emotional integration work with leaders, and I really had to come up with my own self care plan,
Right.
own nurturing for myself so that I didn't carry it into my family or the rest of my life. And I just want to say, I think your view of this is really important because if you're weighed down 24 hours a day, you're not going to be totally effective with that person who walks through your door.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So I want to know, how do people find you?
So the best way is probably searching for Brittany A. Stevens at Phillips and Associates. You will see my bio, you will see my email, my phone number. You can email me personally there. You can call for a free consultation. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Brittany Stevens Alper. But I really encourage you to find my email, send me an email. I'd be happy to talk. We offer free consultations and see if I can help.
And you work with women all over the country?
I am in New York, so I handle all matters around New York, but our firm also has New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida offices. And then we do partner with a lot of attorneys throughout the country. So we probably, can always find a good referral source.
That's beautiful. I ask the same last question of every guest on my show. This show is called Women Awakening, and I'd like to know from your perspective, what do you think is the most important thing about women awakening on the planet in this moment?
Did you say on the planet?
Uh-huh.
The most important thing for women awakening on this planet in the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a deep question. Um, I feel like all my thoughts are just in my line of work right now, right? So like that question just speaks deeply to like what I do, right? And like it's really truly feeling empowered to speak up, feeling like you have that support system that will stand behind you so that if something is happening in your life, whatever it may be, right? Whether you're getting assaulted at work or there's something happening at home that is, shouldn't be happening or something, in your life, your marriage, feeling like you have someone to turn to, feeling like you have that support system, a therapist, a friend, a lawyer, and finding that empowerment to be able to speak to someone, I think is very, very important to like reclaiming your voice because, it only takes one person to be able to say, you can do this.
Right.
And I think that is, extremely significant.
Well, I think what you just said is so beautiful and important. I wrote this book called I Choose Me, and it was really about women finding their voice and reclaiming their power. So I'm really grateful for the work that you do and that there's someone of your consciousness that's available to support people moving through a time when not all women feel heard and seen.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, ladies, I really hope that you've enjoyed this conversation because I really feel like it's been inspiring. You know, women around the world in this moment are not necessarily feeling heard, seen, or respected. And so to have someone like the beautiful Brittany who is available to support you finding your voice, I think is extraordinary. I hope that you walk away feeling touched and encouraged and reminded of how incredible you are. Because these stories and these interviews are an invitation to awaken your own voice, your vision, your unique gifts in the world. And so if you're ready to go deeper, please know I work with leaders and teams and emotional integration, and I also train coaches. Starting in 2026, I have a new class coming in, and I have a lot of programs that are happening, so you can go to cynthiajames.net. Please remember to subscribe and share these episodes with the women in your life and leave a review. It really helps us to reach a lot of women on our platform. So Women Awakening with Cynthia James. And until next time, this is my desire for you, that you continue to rise, continue to shine, and awaken to the fullness of who you are. Your presence on the planet matters. Many blessings. Love you, and I'll see you next time.